Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Renegade Operative here, and welcome to the One Man Podcast. This podcast is basically just me sitting here, all solo, talking about all the topics that I love and enjoy when it comes to gaming, movies, and comics sometimes. I will be talking about a plethora of topics today, and I have a lot to really go through. You see, when the gaming news becomes too substantial, I have to do my best to try to condense everything to a workable format where I will be able to answer everything clearly and concisely in a nice, timely fashion. And I think that a solo podcast, probably like once every month or once every 2 months, is a good way to do that instead of just pumping out random gaming videos about some topics that I probably don't care about enough to cover to do a reaction video. But I will get into that a little bit after this brief jump cut because I'm going to explain the topics right now, and we're going to talk about some XenoVerse 2. Man, I have been so excited for XenoVerse for a long time. I really want to go back into the game. I want to delve into it, discover all the mechanics, really see how the game opens up the more I progress online. I haven't been doing many story missions, and I kind of have to blame myself and my time for this. But when I get back to it eventually, I'm going to try to unlock some more moves for my created character, maybe make some new characters along the way because I've been very interested to create a female Saiyan as well. So that's something on my to-do list. But for now, I have a male Saiyan. He's pretty awesome. He actually has the color scheme of Chris Redfield. If you notice, like, his outfit, and maybe I'll show a screen cap somewhere in the video, he has like about the same color scheme as Chris Redfield does in Resident Evil 1. So I really enjoy Resident Evil, so I always try to like mix and match it up with my created character. I think that talking about Xenoverse 2 so fanatically allows us to segue more into the topic of today, talking about DLC Pack 3. Recently, they just dropped DLC Pack 3, and we got Bojack, Super Saiyan Rose, Goku Black, and Zamasu as playable characters. Now, I haven't had the time to play with Bojack. I really want to. I really didn't have the time. I just played this DLC pack with the characters like once, and that was it. So I didn't play Bojack, but I did play Zamasu and Goku Black Super Saiyan Rose form. And to be honest, I really like the characters. I think they play really well. There are some moves that really just are weird, and you have to combo link them together, which is the Helm Breaker move that Black does. That move really has a hard time connecting if you do it on your own, so you have to link that into a good combo. I really also don't like his super final Black Kamehameha, which it requires like the startup slow uppercut, and then he goes into the Black Kamehameha, which is kind of weird, and it doesn't work sometimes, to be honest. I think you also have to combo confirm that as well. And my friend Brandon said that the Black Kamehameha for the Super Saiyan Rose form did garbage damage anyway, so it doesn't seem too viable. But I do like that move that he has where he does the multiple slashes and the guy has needles in him and shit, and it follows people like halfway across the map. That move is brilliant. My only disappointment is the fact that they really didn't utilize all of Black's moves with this DLC, because remember when he made the clones, and remember where he had the scythe? The scythe will still be a brilliant weapon over the psionic blade, but I feel as though maybe they didn't have enough time, or maybe that was an oversight. I can see the clones maybe being like scrapped entirely because that seems like it could be way too overpowered, but I still would like the scythe sometime in an update. I remember when they updated Hit to be Awakened Hit in some form, so it shows that they really are still updating these DLC characters, and I would like to see Super Saiyan Rose Black come out with the scythe so I could be the motherfucking Grim Reaper bitch and just take it to the enemies online. It's gonna be so fun. And with the amount of transformations in the anime and manga of Dragon Ball Super, the possibilities right here are really endless. They're still showing content that is in new arcs, and they're still revisiting some characters and putting them in new scenarios, and we still have the universe survival arc that's still ongoing, that's probably going to ramp up the more that progresses. So you never know what could happen in the future when it comes to certain characters and mechanics like this. My only request for a transformation is Super Saiyan Rage Trunks, because Trunks is the shit. Let's have that in the game, please. I've had a little bit of time to play with Zamasu, and Zamasu seems like he has some devastating finishers, but he feels to me, in my opinion, a little bit slower than Goku Black's Super Saiyan Rose form. It just feels like he's more of a defensive character, and he really has some very high damaging offensive moves. So I can't wait to dive more into this DLC of Dragon Ball Xenoverse DLC Pack 2. I really love playing with these characters so far, and I can't wait to see more in the future. Also, they revealed a little teaser of DLC Pack 4, which reveals the fact that we will be definitely getting Vegito Blue. So that's going to be in the future. That's going to be just hype. I've been waiting for that a long time, and I'm surprised that they just teased that right out of the gate a little bit after the DLC dropped. So I'm really looking forward to playing with Vegito Blue. I wonder who else are they going to implement in this pack. Everyone's speculating that it's going to be Merge Zamasu, and pretty much, I mean, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't put Merge Zamasu when base Zamasu is already in the game. So I think he's going to be coming somewhere down the line. Hopefully he has those crazy biblical moves that he has in Dragon Ball Super, where he just eradicates people and he has that fucking giant glowing halo. You know what I'm talking about if you watch Dragon Ball Super, the Goku Black arc. We're going to stop fanboying right now about the characters in Xenoverse 2, and we're going to move straight on to the next section of the criticism of Goku Black's voice now, because his Super Saiyan Rose voice is a little bit altered now. I'll say this now and make this brief, because I've been talking about Xenoverse 2 for the past 7 minutes. It seems like what Sean Schemmel tried to do, and a lot of fans got antsy about this, is with his Super Saiyan Rose form, he tried to emulate the English actor of Zamasu. And if you guys aren't well aware of this, spoilers for Dragon Ball Super if you don't know this, but Zamasu and Goku Black are one and the same indeed. So it seems like what Sean Schemmel is trying to do is emulate the actor for Zamasu, who sounds British. And I understand that people really think it's weird at first, but when it comes to voice acting, I said this before, you gotta take some time to get used to it. You gotta listen to that voice being fully fleshed out and worked and stressed in the actual anime itself when we finally get to that point. I think that when it comes to games like this, of course, the actors are trying their best, and there's some existing lines that basically gives you an impression of how Sean Schemmel and Zamasu sounds, but I think when it comes to how they fully act and how they need to fully emote their emotions when it comes to a long-standing anime where they have to take it seriously, I think it really gives them more time to shine in that regard, as opposed to getting them in the game studio and just saying a few lines on paper and letting it fly and calling it a day. I mean, sometimes voice acting is really quick for a lot of vets, and I think so far the voice sounds really fine. I have no problems with it. I really understand what they're trying to accomplish, and it's a lot better than the base Goku Black DLC, which I think is a rip-off Christian Bale Batman sounding wannabe, if you want my opinion. I'm glad that Sean Schemmel's really trying to change it up here. So we're going to move on to Call of Duty World War II. Oy. At the time of this recording, I recently just came off of watching the Call of Duty World War II reveal trailer. Of course, for people that's been living under a rock, Call of Duty World War II was leaked prior to this announcement a few months ago. Actually, they had promotional material, they had pictures, they had all this news and articles signifying that they were going back to their roots, which was World War II. It seems to me that Call of Duty World War II is just trying to attempt to cash on what Battlefield 1 brought back, going back to an old era and making some sort of change and updates and refinements that will make it popular to the modern era. Now, granted, the graphics for Call of Duty World War II, they look phenomenal, fantastic. That is a good job for Sledgehammer Games. They made the game look incredibly crisp. It runs so smooth from what I saw from the trailer, and is so visually appealing, but it's Call of Duty, and it's something that I just can't get excited over anymore. I want to make a full video on this. That's a topic in itself, but I feel as though there is a strong hint of series fatigue within me, even though personally I really want this series to succeed. I really want it to do well, but COD is just yearly releases back to back, non-stop, ASAP, and Sledgehammer Games is not the best COD developer. That honor really belongs to Treyarch, because Treyarch has been the best Call of Duty developer, and I did thoroughly enjoy Black Ops 3 for what I played, of course. Some people might not like that game, but I did, and that was the last Call of Duty I was really into. I just can't get into this shit, because every time a developer says we're going back to roots, we're going back to the drawing board, they just do things that make this worse. If you want a prime example, Activision was so willing to do anything they could to make sure that Infinite Warfare took off, that they were willing to take an old game from the past that a lot of people cared about, which was Modern Warfare 1, remaster that and attach that to Infinite Warfare. So the only way that you can get that game is by buying Infinite Warfare. They always try some cheap marketing ploy. They take out maps, they do all this bullshit, and quite frankly, I'm also tired of horrible DLC practices too. And I guess this segues into Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, because my lord, I'm not going to dwell on this subject for way too long, but I will say there are some big, giant Capcom cocksuckers out there. I mean, good lord. You have so many people defending this garbage. You have so many people that were in the past defending the garbage of UMVC 3 coming out 6 months after the original release, and you guys getting milked, you guys having to basically pay for characters over like Jill and Shuma Garaf on this DLC. Why do people accept this? Why do people think this shit is cool? This shit is sway. This shit should fly. It should fucking not. It really shouldn't. But we have some characters that we won't be able to play with. We have some DLC characters. I believe there's 6 of them in alternate costumes. Like, there's one costume that's locked. That's pretty fucking disappointing, because it's the costume that Mega Man had for Command Mission, and Sigma is a DLC character. How the fuck can you have a hero? Mega Man X hasn't been seen in a long time. How the fuck can you have the hero, but the villain is locked behind a paywall? The hero's in the roster, the villain locked behind a paywall, DLC, you have to pay for him. You have to pay for Sigma. Bullshit. Straight up bullshit. And then there was other things that people were showing me, like pretty much copy and paste reskins of Hulk and Chris Redfield. So Chris Redfield is wearing his RE5 uniform. They didn't even take the fucking time to update his model to be RE6, because RE6 is the recent Resident Evil release with Chris Redfield in it. Well, not if you count that other game, but we'll get into that another time. But yeah, I will say RE6 is, for now, his relevant outfit with the haircut and the military gear and all that. But when it comes to this, they didn't even take the time to update it, and I think what they're going to do by using his Resident Evil 5 outfit is by having his moveset, old moves, reskinning stuff that was in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and it seems like it's going to be a giant disappointment in my eyes. They have auto combos, which to me screams casualized garbage, and I don't like it. I don't like when people put Capcom on a pedestal because Capcom is not above criticism. Them basically releasing a piece of a breadcrumb that is Street Fighter V to the fans, to the consumers that enjoy massive amounts of content in their games, even fighting games, that's not acceptable. You shouldn't let a company get a pass for fucking you over. That's what I feel about that. Capcom, your mama deserves to be bitch slapped, and your sister. Let's move on to the next topic, which is Dead Space 3. The coverage of Dead Space 3 being completely butchered by EA that Eurogamer covered not too long ago, I believe. But we're going to get right into this because this is definitely an old topic, and I really want to talk about this to you guys. I'm going to leave this video in the description, but from what I can remember, this was an exposure video, boy. Fucking EA got exposed to shit. Visceral Games came out and talked to Eurogamer about their original visions to Dead Space 3, and it basically dealt with a lot of the same similar elements of Dead Space 2 where they really wanted to explore the dementia of Isaac's mind. They wanted to take that a step further. They really had this craft of wanting survival horror into the mix again, but as usual, EA came by and they fucked it up. And they fucked it up by simply adding in these dumb decisions that had to be decisions by publishers saying that, well, now we want co-op. Now we want you to do this on a limited timetable. Now we want all this shit that really adds nothing to the game. It was also stated in that very video that EA was largely responsible for the fact of Dead Space 2 having multiplayer when it really wasn't asked for or required. You see, you would figure that the fans would be a lot more pissed off if you decide to compromise any of your video games by putting in some random unnecessary mode that means fuck all. Because I mean, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to appeal to that demographic of people who like multiplayer, who like co-op. I understand that. I understand you're trying to appeal to people who maybe they like more replay value in their video games. However, sometimes it's not really necessary when it comes to your vision, and if your vision is compromised, the fans will be a lot more pissed off at you. So to see Dead Space 3 not sell beyond expectations, gee, I wonder why that happened. Maybe the fucking publishers shouldn't try to get involved with the developers when it comes to compromising their vision. Maybe they should actually suggest things and ideas and check things out that allows them more arm room, more freedom. This is why there's always those situations where publishers and developers, sometimes they just don't get along, and other times if they allow the developer to have more leeway like they are with Kojima with Death Stranding, maybe that game will turn out to be amazing and it will be a win-win for the developer and the publisher. This enforcement of putting in content that makes no sense, it really needs to stop, EA. You really fucked up Dead Space, and now Dead Space is in that situation of being in limbo where we just don't know if Dead Space is ever getting a sequel or not in the future. And you know, we interviewed Isaac Clarke's voice actor, Gunnar Wright, and he was very enthusiastic about coming back. It's just a shame this is what happens when publishers interfere with developers and we get these half-baked, half-assed games because of it. It really needs to stop, and it needs to come to some resolution where the publishers, they look at the numbers, they see what works, and the developers can work on their games artistically with no one interfering in that progress in case something is going right. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Hopefully they make a Dead Space 4 in the future. Now we're going to move on to our PlayStation corner where we're going to talk about Days Gone and Uncharted Lost Legacy. So I don't have much to say about Days Gone because outside of that initial trailer they showed last year and the gameplay they showed at PlayStation Experience where there's like 30 or 40 zombies on screen. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's interesting and it's amazing. I don't know anything much about that game other than the fact that Sony Bend did move in location, so I think they're building up progress to make a expansion to make this game bigger. I can't wait to see how it goes during E3. I'm kind of skeptical because it's a new IP, so maybe it's just me, but sometimes when it comes to new IPs, you're pretty much content on being sold on the idea. And for this in particular, it really needs some vibrance and something to distinguish itself from all these oversaturated zombie games that are on the market. And that's the problem with Days Gone, is that it's just a zombie game when it comes down to it, and we have like hundreds if not thousands of zombie games, so it's in a genre where it's not original. But again, some people might say that, and then they might say, well, The Last of Us really did well, and it's in a post-apocalyptic creature-oriented setting, so you never know what could happen. But I will say the tech for the game, it is pretty impressive. This is Sony Bend. They are the Siphon Filter developers, so they could probably bring something really raw and gritty and fun to the table. They made good games in the past. I really enjoyed the Siphon Filter series. I want to see what more can they do with this IP, but I will agree that it is in a oversaturated market. But the mechanics of the game and how the technical aspects work, where there's like about zombies piling on top of each other, is pretty crazy. I don't think we really had that World War Z type of zombie game where there's zombies all over the fucking place making mountains out of each other. So it's ridiculous, and I can't wait to see how the combat functions, how we are going to take out these large hordes. Is there going to be boss fights? Is the story going to be very interesting? That is the hard-hitting questions that I really want to know as someone that is curious about this game. Uncharted Lost Legacy, I have a little bit more to say. The game is coming out sometime this August, and I'm definitely going to pre-order that motherfucker right away. I am a huge Uncharted fan. The Uncharted series is finally going to take a big-ass break, or finally end, because Naughty Dog, they were saying in some interviews they would like to revisit this type of series in the future. Who knows what that could be? Maybe they want some other developers to take the reins of the IP. I mean, I don't mind Uncharted personally continuing if it's in the hands of a great studio developer, because we see Uncharted ported over before to the Sony Bend developers, ironically. So I really want to see how Lost Legacy turns out gameplay wise. Supposedly it's going to be longer than The Last of Us Left Behind, which, I mean, that's pretty. I mean, I would say the average game should be about 7 to 10 hours, maybe a little bit longer than that. So Left Behind definitely felt somewhere in that range of 7 hours. So if it's longer, maybe it's going to be like 12, 13 hours tops. It's supposedly going to be shorter than the campaign of Uncharted 4, and I don't mind that personally. I've been waiting for this DLC a long time. I haven't seen Chloe in ages, man. Oh my god. She wasn't even in Uncharted 4, which was a missed opportunity, because Uncharted 4, that was it, man. That was Drake's last adventure. And to leave her out, to leave all these other characters out, and to focus on just Drake and his brother as the two mainstays, I mean, of course, it was an interesting dynamic there, and the story was, it was alright. It wasn't the best, but it was something. To have those characters left out of the experience really felt like it wasn't as personal as I thought it would be. Like, we grew up with these characters, and to not involve, like, most of them, and to leave them out and to later put them as DLC is pretty crazy. I think maybe Uncharted 4 should have solved all the loose ends, and then it would have been a more comprehensive story experience with this DLC in mind, with all this stuff in mind about where they could go next, and it was set up as a big teaser. But I personally can't wait for this DLC to drop. I'm gonna pre-order it pretty soon. Chloe was a fan favorite of mine. Nadine was, she was okay. She was just this black chick that beat the shit out of Drake and his brother for a good minute. But I want to see how this dynamic works between those two and see the tension really surface between those two characters, because Nadine had problems with trusting people, and so did Chloe in a lot of instances. So I can't wait to see how this really unfolds. I'm actually going to omit the last topic that I had here because, you see, sometimes when I need a good idea, I always write down these ideas on Notepad or I save them somewhere. After this video is over, I'm going to save all my ideas on a flash drive. So I wanted to talk about why video game movies are so bad, but I think that deserves a video in itself. But we're going to talk about the Order 1887. Why so many people want a sequel so bad. This is going to be a small topic that I'm going to go over. I just don't understand it. I mean, I remember so many great new PlayStation IPs like Neo and Horizon, and the Order 1886 is not one of them. Now granted, I really do want to play the game and experience it myself to see what is really fundamentally flawed about it, as well as what really sticks and is good. And I want to decipher the game by myself. I know this game is going to be not up to snuff, but I'm so curious because I never tried it before. And I think that's why I'm kind of interested to give it a go. I don't know why people are overlooking any flaws and deciding that they just want to jump into a sequel. Now granted, maybe the Order 1887, if it's done properly, could be the next Uncharted 2 when it comes to the video game landscape, but the Uncharted 2 of anything is really setting a bar of expectations that are really hard to top. They really have to put their best foot forward when it comes to the sequel to the Order 1886. I'm gonna give the original game a try, see what type of potential it may have. But yeah, so far from what I heard, everyone says is a very mediocre and average game, which they would need to step up for a sequel to put it on the map. That is the one thing that you need to do for any sequel. Take something that works, learn how to build and improve on it so you can make a better product overall. That's how it should be. This is Renegade Operative signing off. My throat is dry as fuck, so I'm gonna get some water. But when it comes to the one-man podcast, I don't know when the next episode is going to be. It probably might be some stuff after E3 because I might want to give my thoughts and opinions in deeper detail. I will be covering E3 extensively on my channel, so there will be reviews. We're going to be skipping the PC gaming show because the PC gaming show is a piece of garbage and it's not worth watching unless they show something that's really good in tech. It's not worth really getting into. But it's always been trash, so that might be skipped. As usual, I will be uploading my thoughts and impressions and reviews of the press conferences for E3 2017. Be on the lookout for that. Once again, I will not be doing any prediction videos because I'm not a type of person who does predictions. We're always either right or wrong, so I'm not gonna do any sort of predictions on E3. I just want to see what they can do. I want to see what Microsoft brings to the table, or if they just completely flub it up. Who knows? I will probably be doing a video on the Scorpio upcoming very soon. Actually, I'm gonna begin writing for that video after this podcast is over, and I'm gonna give my impressions on what I think about the Scorpio. Yet again, talk about it in detail since the specs were shown off at Digital Foundry, and I kind of want to get into that a little bit. Once again, I'm so happy you guys have been watching my content, enjoying it. Any like, any view, anything is appreciated. People sharing out my stuff, I really enjoy it. This has been a great experience for me, and hopefully I can continue providing my entertainment, opinions, and all my thoughts and impressions in the near future. This is Renegade Operative once again signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one-man podcast. I don't know when I'll be back for it afterwards, but like I said, maybe E3 afterwards will have some thoughts in detail for another one-man podcast. You can find me on Twitter at RenOperative_. You can find me on YouTube right here at Renegade Operative, and you can find me on my live streaming sites at Renegade_Operative at Twitch TV. I will be streaming some Outlast too, so be on the lookout for that. That's going to be pretty funny, hopefully. And I will see you guys next time. Later.